I'm AK and I'm president of the PolSoc Society.
Hi, I'm Aditi and I'm an editorial team member for Incite.
So today we're interviewing Tai for the role of president.
Yeah.
Hi Tai, how are you feeling about your campaign? How's everything going?
Feeling good. Feeling mostly confident and really motivated.
Yeah, okay, great. So for our first question, we want to focus on your Facebook post that says, voting Taiwo means voting for a vision, a new perspective for the union.
Yeah.
Tell us what you mean by this, just elaborate.
Well, it's a new vision because it's not Alex's vision, it's my vision. Two, it's our vision because a vision for the union isn't a vision for me. It's a vision for a student movement, for the student experience, which is a broad experience that advocates to different demographics, going up and down the 15,860 students we have. Yeah, that's pretty much my reasoning behind it.
So how would you say your vision is different from Alex's vision?
I think my vision's different from Alex's because, as you know, this year she really had the passion and drive to go with accommodation this year. And housing crisis is a national problem, but it's specifically a problem to Guildford for many reasons, more than one being to do with the fact we're the second highest place to live to London, who was first. But also there is another problem that's coming to it, and this is since the HE bill that was passed. And Joe Johnson, Minister of Higher Education, had a big role to play in that. As you know, the Teaching Excellence Framework is it's regulating learning and teaching, but at the same time, it's not making it a student-led agenda, it's a government-led agenda. Mind you, the Office for Students, which is meant to regulate this framework, does not have a student on board. So I think you can understand nationally where higher education is in the problem.
Yeah. So looking at your manifesto, one of your main points is titled Lead.
Yes.
Could you tell us about your leadership style?
My leadership style. I like to think that everyone's a leader in their own right, and especially when I say lead, I think everyone's a mini leader, and I don't like to be that person who kind of puts themselves out there and gets in people's faces and says, I'm president, you must go to here, you must tell this person you're fired. You know, I'm not that type of person. I like to inspire people to basically enforce change in their own right. And I think that's something that I've developed since my role in Vice President Voice. It's something I've learned that if you really do train your team right, you won't have to keep telling them what to do. They'll just know what to do.
So going from that, do you think there's anything you would change from the way that you led in your role as VP Voice to your role as president?
I think something that I'm learning now is that there's two spectrums you can look at things. One is business and one is personal. Especially when you're talking to the university, there's a certain language you have to use to speak to them. But at the same time, you have to remember that students are depending on you. Not to say you can't be friendly, because I'd like to see myself as an approachable person, but at the same time, there are points, even when you do feel a little uncomfortable, where you have to be just that little bit more assertive. And in the role as president, I'm sure you've seen with Alex, she has developed that assertiveness, and she's been able to develop into a role very well and intricately, and that is what I hope to do as well.
Okay, that sounds great. So now moving on to sort of talking about your current role as VP Voice and the responsibilities you have, and obviously one of the responsibilities is talking about the NUS, which is the National Union of Students. So what's your opinion on the NUS, and do you think it is an effective organisation?
Now, when I look at the NUS, I think it's important to look at it from a SAB and its actual role as the NUS point of view. Now, the NUS is meant to be the national voice for 7 million students up and down the country. And that may constitute to roughly about 70 plus student unions. And at the same time, they also have to elect new SABs every year, and black student officers every 2 years, who will actually take that on and take on a new vision in which the NUS needs to move. Now, for example, SABs here, depending on who the SABs are, the NUS is going to look different. And unfortunately, for many reasons, the NUS has looked different this year. There has been a lot of tabloid and news coverage, which hasn't portrayed the NUS in a good light. But however, I know that without the NUS, we wouldn't have a voice at all.
Yeah.
And I feel in terms of what the NUS needs right now, I do think it needs reform. I think we all can agree it does need reform. And that is why whoever we do elect in NUS conference this year, in April, takes on that reform and brings the NUS back to the students.
Yeah. So, getting a little bit political, do you support or oppose the National Student Survey boycott?
Now, I'm going to say oppose. And the main reason I'm going to say oppose, because when the National Union of Students did this, now I've talked to many people in the NUS SAB team and many of their part-time officers, and I've just said, the problem with this survey, boycotting, doesn't take into the intricate relationships that some unions up and down the UK have with their university. Yeah. Now, especially with Surrey and with our own political climate, the relationship we have with our university is very important to how we influence change within the student experience. And we've generated a good relationship, and we have to trust that within that relationship we can influence change. Now, I don't think in terms of, I get why they want to do the NSS boycott, because it's linked to fees in the TEF, in the framework, which I get. But at the same time, if you want to work with your university to influence change, I feel at this point it's quite drastic and it's burning more bridges than it's making. But to say that the NSS does not need a drastic reform, I definitely agree with that. I think it does need reform, and I do think that in terms of the way it actually talks about students and what they think they're learning and what they're not learning, I think it's highly, I think it's warped around the idea of third years leaving. And when they leave, they have to come out with very good, stats and rankings, and that obviously has a lot to play in the data set that the NSS does portray. So in the long run, I definitely want to see something done about the NSS. At the moment, I'm currently putting in motions to the NUS for conference, which needs to go through our exec process, which might have to be circulated by email, because 28th of February is the deadline. But there, NSS reform, definitely, but boycott, no.
Okay. So we're going back to your manifesto, and in comparison to the other candidates, you could comment that perhaps it's lacking a bit of detail in comparison. Can you expand on any of your points and how you're going to engage with students, for example, as one of your points, how you're going to challenge the council on the accommodation issues, and how you're going to lead the university in the infrastructure, as you say in your manifesto? Of course.
Well, engage, I think it's quite a simple but effective one. You have to take into consideration that the student population has grown. This year, we took on a head count of 3,000 students. That's the highest we've ever had. And I've been here about 3.5 years. It's never been that high. And that means that the Students' Union can't just see this space as a base of operation for students to come to. One, because navigation-wise, if you're in first year, there are at least 5 exits that I know you'd think you'd come in from and you'd find the union, and you don't. You get to a stick-to-end wall and you're like, where am I? I remember one student who wanted to come and see me, and I went, where are you? And he said, I'm in the union. And I went, I can't see you. And he says, oh, I'm at the bottom. So he came to the front room. Now he is right, he is in the union, but the place in which he'd need to be to talk to me, he's not there. So in terms of engagement, we have to not see this place as just a physical base of operation, but the fact that students are the union, we are the union, but we need to bring that out to the students and make that a personal connection. We need to have that personal connection with the union. For example, when I went out and I was talking to students, for example, on the plasma screens, you probably wouldn't know if I'm 5'8" or 6'4". You probably wouldn't know my name is actually Taiwo and it's not Tai. But if you don't really have that engagement with students, how are they going to actively engage with the union, participate in the union, and then have that impact that you want to have on the student experience? I believe it's a two-way street, and I think we need to build that up a bit more as we have built up our media coverage this year.
But is there sort of any reasoning behind sort of a minimal kind of manifesto? Because
of course.
On some of them they've got extensive plans. And perhaps your one doesn't come across as much.
Well, this is the way I look at it. I've been in this role a year. And there's a lot about the university, its structures, and little intricate stuff that I understand. But students won't all understand that. So what good is it me putting in a very, very hard laboured plan in there for them to try and warp their head around? It'd probably be like me looking at maths. I don't like maths. Maths doesn't like me. But I try and make it as clear cut as possible because I believe short, sweet and concise allows students to become much more curious. It allows them to become inquisitive and ask those questions. And in bringing out those questions that they're asking, do new ideas unfold. And that is what I did in this manifesto.
So basically just making it more accessible
Making
to
it
students.
much more accessible.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely.
So for our final question, is there something on your manifesto that you didn't include that you would like people to know?
At this point, no, because I feel the basis of my manifesto says what I'm going to do, and then anything else that I do on top of that is a manifestation of what my manifesto pledges are.
Okay. So would you say it's a starting point?
It's definitely going to be a starting point because coming into the role as president, and I've been, and as my role as vice president voice, things are different. You see two different roles you probably don't see.
Yeah.
But these points are measurable and they are achievable because I've planned them out that way to be practical and actually have end goals. So, yeah.
Well, I think that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And if you'd like to check out other videos of the other candidates going for president, click on the videos in the description box.
Please subscribe to Stag TV and like the Facebook page for the Politics Society and for Incite if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you. Thanks, Tai. Thank you so much.